Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well-known phobia expert and an author from London, UK, Mr. Christopher Paul Jones. Chris, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Chris is a leading Harley Street phobia expert, and he's an author of a book titled Face Your Fears, 7 Steps to Conquering Phobias and Anxiety. So, Chris, while I'll come to asking you a question on what is Harley Street phobia, but before that, let me talk a little bit about your own journey. Tell me about your own journey in brief, and were there any personal experiences with fear or phobia that led you to follow this path?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I was terrified of lots of things. I had fear of flying. I had fear of public speaking, ironically enough, various insects, things like that, various social phobias. And so it was never anything I thought I would do. But then I also didn't know that this type of therapy existed where you could make change very quickly. So yeah, I was struggling. I can tell you some of the stories if you want me to go into it.
Please,
But
please.
basically, I used to be a cameraman and I had a near miss filming from a helicopter. The helicopter I was on, 20 minutes after being on it, crashed basically. So I was okay with it because it seemed quite abstract. And then later on, I'm out with these snowboarders in the mountain, and they show me this scorch mark, and they go, "That's the helicopter you're on." And instantly, I was gripped by this fear. Growing up, I had sort of reading difficulties, learning difficulties, what's called dyslexia, things like that. So I was not a strong reader. And again, ironically, now I write books, and yeah, made to get up and read in front of class, being laughed at. So I had all these things going on. And just one day I came across someone sort of demonstrating some of these processes that I now use. And I was like, gosh, I want to learn that. And I didn't have the money to learn. I didn't have the time. And I really only wanted to learn for myself to improve my, I can get over these things. I can live my life. And so I ended up trading my time. I said, I will make you videos if you teach me how to do this stuff. And so that was the start of my journey.
Wow.
And then I got interested, like as I did it on myself, I was like, oh, I could do this with other people. It started off as fun. And then I started to help people, and then I started to charge people. And now, whatever it is, 15, maybe 20 years on, I now, run a big business in it.
Incredible, incredible. So, from a situation of overcoming your own phobia to becoming a global expert,
Mm.
what has your journey taught you about human potential?
We can change way quicker than we think we can. Like
Mhm.
we think, oh, this is just who I am, or my grandma was like this, my mom was like this, so I'm like this. And so we often, put down to genetics what is just sometimes learned behavior. And so we can change very quickly with the right triggers, with the right approach.
Amazing. So, Chris, now let's talk about Harley Street phobia.
Yeah.
What is Harley Street phobia, and what
Yeah.
is the
So
common form of phobia people approach you with?
right. So Harley Street is the address. So Harley Street is a very famous address in London for doctors,
Okay.
health practitioners. So if people say, "Oh, I'm going to Harley Street," they're having dental work. It's sort of it's renowned for that. So that's the location I
Okay.
work from when I
Okay.
see people face to face.
Hmm.
Sorry, I forgot your second question. What was the second
No, I
question?
said that what is Harley Street phobia, and what
Okay. So
are,
yes, yeah,
what are the most common phobias people approach you
yes.
with?
Right. So the most common, the ones I deal with the most are flying and public speaking. Now, I deal with all sorts. I deal with dogs and spiders and whatever. In terms of the top, if you look at the top 10, if you look at the studies of the most of the biggest phobias, it tends to be spiders and public speaking tend to battle for the top stop, depending on
Hmm.
the study you're reading. Um, why public speaking is so high when you know I talk about this to most clients. I say with most other phobias, look, a phobia is something that isn't statistically dangerous, i.e. flying is the safer than traveling in your own car, safer than sleeping in your own bed, but accidents do happen. If someone sees it on the news, it can influence them. Public speaking, the worst thing that can possibly happen is that you can feel slightly embarrassed. Oh, I didn't do a great job there. Oh, I forgot what I was about to say. And yet it dominates so many people's lives.
Correct.
And I think it's something in society about wanting to fit in, about not wanting to seem as vulnerable or weak or whatever. So yeah, the top ones I deal with are flying and spiders. And sorry, speaking. Why I do get people for spiders and other things. Why I get more of them? Maybe because I have a personal story there. Maybe because they're things that you can't avoid. So, not flying can affect your career. Not being able to public speak can definitely affect your career, especially if it's in all areas like, going to a job interview or anything.
Hmm. Very interesting. And in your opinion, what are some myths or misconceptions people have about therapy for phobias, and how do you help them to dispel this?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is that they believe the only way to get over a phobia is through what you call exposure, that you
Mm,
can't let a fear go and you have to, drop yourself in it and just keep speaking or keep seeing that spider or whatever it is. Um, Now there's a place for that. Of course, the more you do something, generally the better you become, the more confident you become.
mm,
That doesn't necessarily work when a phobia is very strong, though, because actually what you're doing is you're constantly reliving the memory. You're constantly remembering, oh, last time I was anxious, and you're building the fear.
mm,
So the biggest myth is that it takes a long time and that you have to see the thing you're scared of in order to let it go, and neither are true.
Wow. What is the core philosophy behind the integrated change system, and how does it differ from traditional therapy?
The main philosophy, the main thing I'm interested in when helping someone is not the why of their fear. Most traditional therapies deal with why you are the way you are. Oh, you're scared of spiders because of this. You're anxious because, your parents are anxious. It's useful to know. It's not, but just because oh, once I got up in school and was laughed at. Okay, that's why I have a fear of public speaking. It's useful because you can find the triggers.
Mm,
However, just intellectually knowing something is not the same as emotionally changing something. And so the biggest thing I'm interested in is changing the how of your fear. So a lot of people treat their emotions like an illness, like a cold, like, oh, what if I get anxious? And
mm,
the question is always, how do I get anxious?
mm,
Because while it's subconscious, there's always something you're doing. And so there's a voice in your head, there's a picture you're making in your mind, there's a feeling, there's a whole set of beliefs, there's all sorts of things that go on behind the scenes to create joy or fear or whatever. And so focusing on the how and learning how to deconstruct that is where I think I differ from traditional therapies.
Amazing. And my next question, Chris, is what role does the subconscious mind play in developing and overcoming fears?
Oh, all of it. Like literally, this is the thing, and it's something that we don't really talk about. To my
Mm,
point, if you go and study psychology at university, you'll tend to learn a lot of theories. It's not bad, or read a lot of books on psychology. Oh, Jung came up with this theory, and Freud came up with this theory, and this and this, and lots of philosophies. But that isn't necessarily how you let go. You didn't create this fear logically. You didn't sit there one day and go, what would be great is if I was scared of XYZ. So it's all happening in the subconscious. And so by learning how to relax the analytical mind and tap into the subconscious, that's where change can happen very quickly. The problem with the subconscious, it's very powerful. It does not work in the same way that our analytical mind works. It does make decisions, but it's very different. And so it's almost learning how to talk to that part. But when you start talking to people about the subconscious, some people, especially if they have big control issues, are going to go, oh, you mean like stage hypnosis? You're going to make me think I'm a chicken or whatever, you're going to make me eat an onion and think it's an apple. That's not what it is. It's the exact opposite of that. It's learning how to connect with a whole part of you, and whether that's mindfulness or visualization or any of these techniques,
mm,
so your analytical mind and your emotional mind can talk to each other. And so,
mm,
yeah, that's where the real change happens. It's always happening at the
mm,
subconscious.
mm. Amazing. So you were telling me that spiders and public speaking are amongst the top two, but
Yeah.
is something like technology or social media
Yes.
increasing the levels of anxiety and fear you see in clients today?
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest, yeah, obviously the fear that has been around for many years is the fear of technology killing us, and so whether that used to be weapons, now it's, how kids are getting their essays written, it's AI, it's all these things, and people are terrified, Like they're looking for careers. They're going, oh, I could go to university and study this. Oh, AI is going to take that. Oh, I could do art. Well, AI is going to take that. And it's so there's a lot of fear about career. There's a lot of fear about obviously, what the future holds. And so, yeah, whenever there's a strong uncertainty in the world, it creates a lot more anxiety. And so one of the big times in recent memory, obviously, was COVID.
Yeah.
So you're suddenly locked at home, especially in the early days. You're locked at home. No one really knows what they're dealing with. So the strong need for certainty. So people turn on the news and then they go, the death toll is whatever. And so people are locked away, no one to talk to, and then they're in a state of fear. And that is, I've seen that and has created a lot of overwhelm and anxiety.
And, in each of my questions, if there's an example or a story you can share without any names, of course, it'll
Sure.
help to understand your responses because this is such a fascinating topic about phobias.
Yes.
Next question for you, Chris, is have you noticed any cultural patterns in phobias across different countries or regions?
Yes. So certain things that are kind of self-explanatory. So, for example, fear of dogs. Now, in countries like mine, America, Canada, probably like that, um, dogs are almost considered part of the family. They're treated like a baby almost.
Mm.
In other cultures, they're for hunting, they're for guarding, and so they'll have a very different relationship with their or cats. Cats are for catching mice; they're not a pet. So those kind of things. Obviously, some religions treat animals differently. So some they're less likely to have any fear because it's revered. Other ones, oh no, they're dirty or whatever. So all these things are going to make a difference. Yeah. So whether that's obviously your upbringing anyway, wherever you live. But culturally, obviously, if you're from a family that never really traveled, you're more likely to create fear of going far from home, fear of flying, fear of driving. So yeah, all these things can be influenced by your religion, by your culture, but
Mm.
also by your family, your cousin. What did your family do? What did your brothers do? What did your sisters do?
Mm.
And that's all going to have an impact. Now, it doesn't always, in the same way that some people have very anxious parents and they're not anxious. But it's much more likely you're going to get anxious if you're in that environment because it's what you grew up. It's your model, what you call a model of the world. It's your lesson.
Well said. How do you maintain emotional resilience when dealing with people's deeply rooted fears every day?
I think, well, firstly, I don't go in because of the work I do, because it's very solution focused. I'm not just delving into the problem and sitting with the problem. What I'm doing is helping the person discover it and get to the other side. So a lot of my work is celebrating how far someone has come. So that's the first thing. But I do think anyone who's working with sometimes with difficult issues, it's a balance between feeling a sense of connection with that person, understanding how they think, understanding how the decisions are made, but then being able to have a little bit of separation, like I guess kind of like a bubble where you don't take on board their problem, because that's not good for me helping the next person. It's also not good for them. You don't, if someone's stuck in the hole, you don't want to jump in the hole with them. You want to kind of help them get out of it. And so it's being connected without getting too absorbed, which is why, of course, it's very hard. A lot of therapists say this, a lot of harder to work with friends and family because you're kind of too close and you can't see it as impartial.
Amazing. One more question relating to phobia, then I want to move to your.
Yeah,
What is the
sure.
strangest or most unusual phobia you have ever encountered and successfully treated?
So I had one a couple of Christmases ago. Lady who had a fear of tinsel. So this is tinsel. It's like the silver
Yeah.
stuff that goes around Christmas trees. Now it used to be fashionable and then it went out of fashion and now it's come back again. Anyway, every time she saw tinsel, she would have panic attacks. She would avoid Christmas parties. It was a big deal. Um, now, and it seems so strange, tinsel. But what had happened is when she was younger, her cousins, it was one sort of family party at
Mhm.
Christmas time. She'd been wrapped in the tinsel as a game, covered her mouth. She couldn't breathe, started to choke. And
Wow.
so her brain had created tinsel equals danger. And it's what's called Pavlovian conditioning or classic conditioning. The brain has associated pain to that thing. And so by deconstructing that memory, by doing some of the techniques that are in the book, I was able to help her have a good Christmas, basically. So that was and the problem with those kind of fears is like when you look at the root cause, when you deal with the triggers, it's obvious. You go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But when people just go, oh, I'm scared of tinsel, there's a tendency to go, well, you just need to get over that. That's silly, isn't it? And they have no idea what's going on in the
I
subconscious, in
know.
the unconscious mind.
I know.
So
Wow. What an amazing example. Thank you. Chris, let's talk about your book now, Face Your
sure,
Fears, Seven Steps to Conquering Phobias and Anxiety. And I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Mr. Christopher Paul Jones's book. I'm going to get a copy
please.
myself.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
what was the inspiration to write Face Your Fears? And what was the hypothesis when you set out to write it?
So the main reason I did it was because of lockdown. So
Hmm.
we just had lockdown, and as I said a minute ago, I saw so much. I don't know if there's a technical term for it, but basically overclocking. So people
Yeah.
would call me and go, I used to be a bit scared of public speaking, but now I haven't done it for 2 years and I'm
Hmm.
terrified. Or I used to be a bit socially awkward, now I
Hmm.
can't do it at all. Or I used to be a bit scared of flying and now I haven't done it and I'm getting scared. But there was and not just that, it wasn't just the lack of doing it. It was also, as I say, being contained in your own home and
Hmm.
surrounded by a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. And so I saw, people were angrier, people were more scared, people were more fearful. And so, I say I draw on a lot of different schools of intervention and I kind of use them simultaneously. So it's not like I go, today I'm doing this process, they kind of all weave into each other. And someone said, oh, I'd love to learn your skills. I'd love to have this. I've never had this. People would go, oh, I've tried this technique, but I've never done this one. And so I thought, well, let me put everything I kind of know into a
Hmm.
format that people can use, because I found that there's always, with even the best sort of interventions, that they're always weak in one area. So using the combination and putting it in a way that people could follow and would be hopefully entertained, was my goal there, really.
Amazing. And you talk about the seven steps. Could you briefly
Yes,
talk about these seven
I
steps?
can. So within the 7 steps, there's lots of different
Yeah.
processes. So the first one is recognize what you're really afraid of.
Mm.
And so what that means is a lot of people come to me. Let's stick with flying for a second, and they'll go, I have a fear of flying. Now, a fear of flying can be many different things. It could be a fear of
Mm.
heights. It
Mm.
could be a fear of loss of control. It could be a fear of the turbulence, the movement, fear of being trapped, fear of crashing, a fear of the fear itself. What if I panic and embarrass myself? So depending on that, depends how you treat it. And a lot of therapies are very prescriptive and just go, oh, you have this fear, then I do this technique. So before you do any of that, it's going, well, what is it behind that? What's going on there? Then it's relaxing the analytical mind. And,
Mm.
as I've said, it doesn't come from logic. And so the more you can be out of your head, so whether
Mm.
you call those mindfulness techniques or self-hypnosis or yoga techniques, those kind of processes are very good for getting in touch with your inner mind, so the answers will come more quickly. Then you've got the looking at the reward for your fear.
Mhm.
Now, this always sounds strange to people. You go, what's the reward for your fear? I.e., what need is it meeting? And most people logically will go, nothing. But if it didn't serve you subconsciously, it
Mm.
wouldn't be, you wouldn't have it. And so the analogy I give is often when people have a fear, their brain is trying to keep them safe, ready, or prepared. Now, fear doesn't do that. Certainly doesn't do it holding on to the past. It doesn't do it projecting into the future, and it doesn't do it for something that isn't statistically dangerous. But the subconscious thinks it is. And so
Yeah.
if you're in a burning building and someone comes up to you and goes, hey, I can help you feel nice and relaxed while this building collapses around you, you're going to go, get lost. I need to get the hell out of here, right? And so this is what the subconscious mind is doing. So by working with the subconscious and finding what need it's trying to meet, your unconscious mind can update its software and find better ways to meet that need. So, a need for safety or protection,
Mm.
where you don't normally feel very safe or
Yeah.
protected when you're anxious. So that's the one. And then it's looking at the recipe. Now, to my point, everything we do has a recipe. It has a picture we make in our mind. It has what we say in our head, what we believe, what we feel, like I was talking about before. How we breathe, how we hold ourselves. We change that recipe, we change how we feel. Then it's about reconditioning the past. So then it's about reconditioning, which is about changing the conditioning response. Now, when you, like I say, if you're angry and someone makes you laugh, and you're angry and someone makes you laugh, eventually you're going to forget what you're angry about. When you do that at the deeper level, it can change how we feel. And then you've got the fear of the future, the realize a powerful future. Now, a lot of anxiety, a lot of anticipatory anxiety is what I call what ifs and yeah buts, where people are imagining the worst case scenario, acting like it happened, and then feeling all those emotions. And again, there's a need there. The brain is trying to keep you safe already. It doesn't do that. And so by changing how you see the future, also change how you feel. So those are the four main areas to look at: the past, the present, and the future, and the roots, the secondary gain, what's holding this fear in place. And as I say, when you tackle, you don't all, different fears have different levels, different people, sorry, and different fears have different levels of them. Some it's more the past, some it's more the future. But when you explore all those areas, it tends to cover every base, basically.
Amazing. Recognize, relax the mind, reward for the what is the reward for the fear? What is the recipe? Recondition the past and be future ready. The amazing 7 steps that you've shared with us. Thank you. Time for 2 more questions.
Sure.
Have you received any surprising feedback from readers who have read your book and used it to overcome their fears?
Yes, quite a lot, mostly good. I mean, all the feedback I've had so far has been good, actually. So that's nice.
Yeah.
I think the surprising thing was because some of these techniques are quite like, before I knew any of this stuff, if someone started talking to me about the subconscious mind and need, I'd be like, really? Like, because I was very analytical, they prove it, So some of the terms are quite complicated, and yet everyone who's given me feedback says I haven't put it in a simple way, and they've been able to help themselves. So it's good that the tools that I've been doing with clients one-on-one translates to a book, and a lot of people are getting good results. So that was a surprise. I'd say surprising. It's what I hoped for, but I wasn't sure till it was out there in public,
Amazing. And my last question for you, Chris.
Sure.
What powerful idea would you like readers to take away from your book?
You're not a victim of your emotions. You can have power over your emotions. Even when people say, I've tried everything, it's just because they've been trying from the wrong place. They've been trying to do it from their head. You can as I said before, change happens very quickly, and everyone can change no matter how long you've had a problem.
Wow. And on that note, Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for such a fascinating conversation. I've all known about phobias, but I didn't realize it was almost like a science. And you took us through some very fascinating aspects of phobia, the Harley Street phobia, which is one of the common phobias. I thought snakes was right up there as well, but
snakes is up there too, actually.
Okay.
One of the things I didn't get to talk about, I know we're running out of time, is
we have time.
I didn't, when you asked me about culture, one of the interesting things that I found is that you look at somewhere like spiders. So in the UK, there are no spiders that can really do any harm. In Australia, there's ones that can kill you, or certain parts of Africa, whatever. Yet the proportion of people that are phobic of spiders per square mile doesn't change. So there's as many people statistically scared of spiders in England as there are in Australia. And so it just always reinforces it's not to do with the likelihood of danger. Generally with most fears. And snakes is up there. It's probably, again, it depends on the study. It's probably like number 2 or number 3 on most lists.
Okay. But, we also had a fascinating conversation on how technology and social media may be exacerbating phobias. Thank you also for talking to me about the fascinating story about tinsel and how you had one individual face it. And then we had a short conversation about your book, Face Your Fears, and we spoke about the 7 steps. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website, www.tbcy.in, to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.